we are moving on with PO22, which is the opposite of the first page of PO22. In the first page, you were given an equation in slope-intercept form, and your job was to rewrite it in standard form. In the second part of PO22, I give it to you in standard form, and your job, Zoe, is to rewrite the equation in slope-intercept form. And here's how you do it. 2 steps. Number 1, and you're going to recognize this from what we did yesterday, because if we're going back to where we were, it's essentially undoing what we did. It's like when you drive to school in the morning, and then you turn around and go home again. You kind of do the opposite of what you did, right? Same thing here. So we are going to start by moving the x term. I can spell term right. Move the x term to the other side using opposite operations. Okay, that was our second step when we went from slope-intercept to standard form. If we're going back to slope-intercept form, it's now going to be what we do first. We're going to move the x term over first. So let's just start 6x plus 2y equals 14. Let's practice this. We're going to move the x term to the other side using opposite operations. This 6x is positive, which means we are going to be subtracting it, right? We're moving it back on the other side away from y, because recall, slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, y is by itself, right? So we have to move that x term back over to the other side. On the left side, 6x minus 6x is 0. They cancel out. We're left with 2y. On the right side, just like we saw yesterday, we can't combine that 14 and negative 6x because the 14 doesn't have an x. They're not like terms. And with addition and subtraction, you have to have like common denominators with fractions. You have to have like terms with variables. We don't have that here. So which is correct? To put that negative 6 after the 14 or before the 14? After. Before, okay? The reason why we put it before the 14 is because look at slope-intercept form. Mx plus b, right? That x term comes first. So on the right side, we are going to write negative 6x, because we got to subtract it. It's a negative 6x, and then positive 14. The reason why it's positive 14 or plus 14 is because the 14 was positive on the right side. Okay? So step 1, move the x term over to the other side. Don't combine it with the constant, because you can't. Put the x term first, and we get 2y equals negative 6x plus 14. Okay? Second step, anyone have a guess? That's part of it, I guess, but no. Yeah.
Divide everything by 2.
Excellent. Divide each term by the coefficient to y. Divide each term by the coefficient to y, right? Yesterday, we multiplied by something. Today, we're dividing by something. We want to get y by itself. We're essentially doing the opposite steps. So divide by 2, divide the negative 6x by 2, divide the 14 by 2. Everything gets divided by 2. And if you're wondering, well, wait a minute, why can we divide a 2 by an x term here, right? Because they're not like terms. Why is that? Well, the rules for multiplication and division are different than addition and subtraction. Think about fractions. When you add and subtract, you must have common denominators. When you multiply or divide, you don't need them. Okay, the rules are just different. So like terms only exist with addition and subtraction. That's why I could not combine them here. But we can divide by 2 because it's a different operation, different set of rules. On the left side, 2 divided by 2 cancels out. Y is by itself. Negative 6 divided by 2. We can ignore the x. What is negative 6 divided by 2? Negative 3. So y equals negative 3. Put the x back in. And then 14 divided by 2. Positive 7. So y equals negative 3x plus 7. Now that we're in slope-intercept form, we know all we need to about how this line is going to look on the coordinate plane. It's going to cross the y-axis at 7. Its slope is -3/1, right? We can graph it very easily, things that standard form couldn't do for us. And that's why we convert. Okay? Why we convert. Initial questions on this. It's a little bit cleaner than the front side, right? We don't have any fractions to work with here. Okay, so that's kind of nice. But are we good? Good. Next one. -12x plus 8y equals 56. Step 1. Move the x term to the other side using opposite operations. What's our first step? Ryan. Do you know?
I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention.
Thank you for your honesty. What is our first step in the second one? That -12x plus 8y equals 56.
All right, so you do just minus 12x.
We're not going to subtract 12x.
Plus.
We're going to add it. Do you see why?
Oh, because opposite operation.
Yes. If it starts out negative, right, to undo that, we're going to be adding it. So plus 12x plus 12x. Notice I didn't write the plus 12x right beneath the 56. It's kind of a reminder not to get like 68x here, okay? But they cancel out on the left. 8y is by itself. That x term, positive 12x, goes before my constant, and it is going to be plus 56 because the 56 is positive to begin with. Now what? Step 2.
Division.
Division. What do we divide by?
12.
Divide by 8, right? The coefficient to y. The coefficient to y, that 8, and each term gets divided by the 8. If we only divide 1 or 2 terms, it's going to change the value of the equation. Each term gets divided by 8. Right? So on the left side, the 8s cancel out. Y is by itself. 12 divided by 8. Does that work out evenly? No. We want to keep it as a fraction because remember what this value represents. What is this right here? Or what will it become in slope-intercept form?
A decimal.
No, we don't want it to be a decimal. What does this 12 divided by 8?
Wait, no. Order of pairs.
Stop. What does this 12 divided by 8 become in slope-intercept form? That coefficient to x, what does the m represent?
Slope.
The slope. Is slope a decimal? No. Slope is a fraction, right? So it's okay these don't divide out evenly. We just have to simplify the fraction. What does 12/8 simplify to be?
4/3.
Close. Divide them both by 4. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah.
That will give us 3 halves. All right. 12 divided by 4, 3. 8 divided by 4, 2. So y equals 3 halves x plus 7. Do not put a decimal there. Okay. The decimal value is 1.5. That's not really slopey. Right? We want to get it in that rise over run form so we can easily see this crosses the y-axis at positive 7. I must have been in a 7 kind of mood. Positive 7 and has a slope of 3/2. How we do it? Well, we'll do one more together, and then the other 3 will be homework for Monday. Okay. 4x minus y equals -3. Get my mouse out of there. 4x minus y equals -3. Go ahead and attempt the first step on your own. Pay attention to negative signs. Pay attention to subtraction signs. All that stuff. It should look like this, subtracting 4x from the left, subtracting 4x from the right. We subtract because the 4x is positive, right? So opposite operations. And if you caught it, hopefully you did, remember that negative sign belongs to the y. So after you subtract 4x, it's going to be negative y equals -4x minus 3. It's a minus 3 because that 3 is negative. That sign does two things. It belongs to the 3 and it tells us that we're subtracting there. Okay? Are we all good? Okay? Now, we're not done yet because negative y is not the same as y. How do we get that negative y to be positive y?
Opposite operator.
Divide by negative 1, right? This coefficient, the 1 part isn't written there, but it really is, there's like a negative 1 there. Okay? So we have to divide everything by negative 1 to make that y positive. And really all that does is it just changes the operations of all the terms on the right side. Negative 4x divided by negative 1 is positive 4x. Negative 3 divided by negative 1 is positive 3. And that would be your final answer. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, compliments, congratulations, criticisms on PO22. I like you people a lot, you know that? You listen, you're quiet, you compliment my outfits, and thank you. I just wish you didn't leave class quite so long. That's okay. I give you 7, you use 7. All right, homework for Monday. The next 3, don't worry about the bottom section. We may come back to that another time, perhaps not, but for sure, the next 3 are homework for Monday. Make sure your work is shown, okay? Make sure your work is shown. That, folks, is how you math.
Don't wait for us to like